I don't spend much time in the Arknights operator review spaces these days for a handful of reasons, and depending on how this video was received, that might very well stay the case. But thanks to the way that CN spoilers tend to leak freely among the Arknights circles I silently orbit around, I've got an itch I've been meaning to scratch now that Chapter 16 is finally out in Global. Meet Ksenia, codenamed Snegurochka, voiced in English by Elizaveta Shaban. She is a 4-star Agent Vanguard operator introduced into the headhunting pool alongside Vitochki and, of course, Mantra. As with every 4-star, you have probably pulled your fair share of extra Snegurochkas while trying to get the 6-star on banner, Mantra. But in my case, I wasn't pulling for Mantra. Don't get me wrong, Mantra's design, voice acting, and gameplay kit is pretty solid, and I can appreciate another source of detection on hand for various challenges. However, these days, my pull strategy is to save for limited banners while only using 10 pulls on the 5-star and above guarantee for each banner in between that has a unit that I don't have. And as of recording, the only operator that this privilege goes to is Leitze the Thunderbringer. There shouldn't be any reason for me to pull for Snegurochka if we go by that standard alone. But with even further context, I still shouldn't be pulling for her on paper. Back during the reveal and release of Chapter 16 in the CN server, the reception to Snegurochka was cold, to say the least. Many considered her to be a worse version of Puzzle, and many still do. Even accounting for the rarity downgrade, the offensive recovery-based agents already in the game were looked down upon versus the ease of use and effectiveness of on-deployment passives or more traditional skill 2s. And to add insult to injury, Snegurochka's talent that grants her attack speed if she remains undamaged is so very easily lost. It's a raw deal, it's wasteful to pull intentionally for Snegurochka, and by many accounts, she wasn't even worth your time or hard-earned resources at all. And yet, here I stand, having spent 40 pulls to max pot her. For the record, Mantra showed up on pull 11, but I really did spend 20 extra pulls on a non-limited banner for this. My Snegurochka is now E2, max leveled, fully masteried, and her module will receive its final upgrade once her trust hits 100. All of this is to say, she's got something going on here, and I will elaborate. For one, the subclass is still strong. One of the things that confused me the most about Snegurochka's poor reception is the fact that she's an Agent Vanguard, which is a really strong subclass to use in all stages of the game. Even if you consider Puzzle's kit and those styled like it to be the weakest of the archetype, the sheer utility of agents is unparalleled by any of the other Vanguards. First is their 35-second redeployment time, which is nested comfortably in between the bog-standard 70 seconds and the fastest 18-second Executor Specialists. If you think about all the times you've needed to throw a fast redeploying operator at a problem in this game, even if it's just for tanking an extra one-shot hit, having a Vanguard that can do that while still having the potential to offset its DP cost is a game changer when it comes to cutting down on operator slots and DP economy pressure. All Agent Vanguards also have a slightly extended attack range, similar to that of Instructor Guards or Sentry Protector Defenders. They might not have as much reach as a Lord Guard or a Hookmaster Specialist, but like these subclasses, Agent ranged attacks can hit flying targets. If high ground is at a premium and your marksman snipers can't cover every flight path, agents are another option in the toolbox to help shore up security in the skies. Agent Vanguards aren't necessarily the best core Vanguard pick in every stage in terms of raw DP efficiency, but they still shine surprisingly well against or with other Vanguards in a lot of different situations. If you're using them for optimizing your opening, they have some of the lowest deployment costs in the class, simply due to the fact that they need a low base deployment cost to not render themselves too expensive later for when they redeploy. When you combine this with a good target to farm auto attacks off of, any Agent Vanguard skills has the potential to match or even outpace the DP generation of standard bearer Vanguards like Myrtle. Hold this thought for a bit because I'll show you a great example of this later when it's a little more relevant. Speaking of holding, lane holding is a great task for pairing up a squishy Agent Vanguard like Snegurochka with a sturdier Pioneer Vanguard or other melee unit in front. If you don't need to open up with a proper sniper, it's an effective way to establish a foothold that also covers the first few air enemies when applicable. And, unlike Charger Vanguards, agents are content with simply auto-attacking to get their DP, no last hits required. This might be counterintuitive for many. It's very tempting to use agents as fast redeploying assassins that can get around the map to take out their targets. But with this style of deployment, they instead turn into a counterintelligence agent, helping the team lock down a position and extract the most out of would-be intruders, especially those that slip by the frontlining unit. I feel like Snegurochka's kit implicitly guides you to do this alternative playstyle, especially due to her talent. Getting free attack speed simply for being undamaged makes her skills generate DP faster, and putting someone in front of her to tank anything but splash damage seems like a no-brainer to me when I'm team building. Keeping her on skill 1 for this use is a perfectly valid strategy, but running skill 2 to slow down unblockable or aerial enemies that slip by can be an excellent payoff for keeping her safe. And besides, losing that attack speed isn't the end of the world for her. It does still suck to lose it, but if you really want it back, guess which Vanguard subclass has fast redeployment? Let's move on. Number 2. Lower rarities are still worth it. Let's say you're a newer player learning the game and you've maybe gotten lucky and bagged an Inez off banner while getting Snegurochka. You've heard that Inez, another Agent Vanguard, is a strong pick, and I would actually agree she's the 6-star paragon of her subclass with matching power to boot. Should you still bother building Snegurochka? Well, you saw the title to this video, but I understand why people wouldn't. In a game where resources are finite and progression is time-gated unless you pay real money, it's important to use what you have wisely. More stars means bigger numbers means more better, right? Mostly yes, but in this game, it actually does depend. Rarity in Arknights can be a double-edged sword. Setting aside the problem of unlucky gacha pulls for a moment, when you look at the costs associated with building up a 6-star versus 4-star operator, the LMD costs alone are doubled and tripled for the Elite 1 and 2 promotions, respectively. The stat differences don't often result in meaningful breakpoints either, meaning that if your 6-star operator doesn't have access to its flashy bells and whistles at E1 and E2, it could be much more practical in the short term to reach the more efficient farming stages with cheaper operators than to be stuck over farming on an easier stage for one 6-star that isn't that much different from its 4-star variant while they're still growing. Now, I'm not saying that 6-stars can't carry, they absolutely can, and if you have the aforementioned situation and still want to skip Ksenia in favor of Inez, don't let me stop you from getting that upgrade. But what I will say is that this game has ways of incentivizing you to build lower rarity units anyway, which is why you'll often find veteran players with a wide selection of 4-star operators built, recommending that you do the same thing even if you do have a favorite 6-star carry. These reasons to do so aren't immediately obvious to new players, but I can reliably point out a few that will become relevant early on. For starters, lower rarity units will always cost less DP than their higher rarity counterparts, especially with their potential token upgrades fully unlocked. This is already good in general due to the costs of leveling up DP generating skills, but this is especially great for Snegurochka since it enhances both aspects of Agent Vanguard gameplay. You can have her out on the field ready to generate DP and deal with early threats faster, but later on in the stage, you can redeploy her as an ultra-cheap option for poking new or unexpected threats that you might not want to commit a more expensive unit for. 2 to 4 DP of extra cost might not feel like much now, but it could mean the difference between making an opening strategy work or missing a timing window entirely. You know what else you could possibly miss out on in this game? Banner timings. All of this reasoning so far is assuming that you have an Inez, Cantabile, Surfer, or even Puzzle ready to build. But if your wallet is empty, you haven't gotten to what the Firelight casts, and the rate up is indeed a lie, I would argue that you'd be doing yourself a disservice to not build Snegurochka or any other lower rarity operator for that matter. Speaking generally, the lower rarity operators all serve as entry-level opportunities to wield a subclass's strengths and weaknesses before they get amplified or obscured, respectively, by their higher rarity counterparts. Snegurochka is no exception. If you become a fan of what she is capable of, you'll be more well-equipped with a fundamental understanding of what to expect when you do gain access to a higher rarity variant. Conversely, if you end up not liking the subclass, the cheaper costs of building lower rarity units mitigates a lot of buyer's remorse alongside the fact that they can still help support your account in other ways, which I'll get to in a moment. But first, some of you might be thinking, Sock, I can just borrow my friend's Inez from the support unit pool. Why bother building Snegurochka? That is true, but ironically enough, I think that's an even stronger reason to build your 4 stars, Snegurochka included. You can only borrow one support unit at a time for most content in the game, and Arknights has enough variation in its challenges that picking the same one will inevitably leave you with a bunch of holes in your strategy if you get complacent. Resting on your laurels like this may leave you stuck once you get to parts where you no longer have access to support units, like the middle of a run of integrated strategies, or in Reclamation Algorithm where you cannot use friend supports at all. But if you have a strong pool of operators to work with, you'll find it easier to be flexible with support units until you get to the point where you can hold your own because you have such a solid, flexible foundation to work with. Besides, if all else fails and you still end up lumping Snegurochka into the pool of 4-star operators not worth using, the cheap costs of building your 4-star units to Elite 2 will make them the most cost-effective benchwarmers on the logistics buff slots in Reclamation Algorithm. But if you're new, I'd recommend holding off on playing RA for reasons that are clearer if you watch my guides on it. Alright, enough with the basics. If you're a veteran player in my audience, I'd like to talk about the fact that offensive recovery has strats. Let's circle back to the notion that offensive recovery Agent Vanguards are bad. They are situational, I won't deny that. Reaching the theoretical fastest limits of DP generation often involves a lot of setup, and at the end of the day, DP is exactly that, DP. Modern Arknight solutions almost forego the DP curve optimization just because we've power crept hard enough that the game really has to go out of its way to stymie our economic options these days. But even so, there are some fun options and tactics that are only available when you have an operator like Snegurochka. The following are a few of my favorites. Sui's Garden of Grotesqueries is where we'll go first, locking in an Arketto and Snegurochka in the initial recruitment vouchers for this IS-6 strategy. I'm usually a first-class squad as your heart desires kind of guy, but picking this setup foregoes some early power for a really fun late-game potential. You can of course remedy this by picking Special Squad, because Rarities solves just about anything in this IS theme, but other viable starts include Tactical Range Squad to pre-promote Arketto, Support Squad for the extra ingots to spend in the shop for key items, or High Ground Breaching Squad to get a discount on Arketto in favor of a 5-star Specialist instead of a 4-star. The idea here is to lean into Arketto's IS-exclusive module that unlocks her offensive recovery SP support to benefit all classes, not just snipers. In addition to charging the team's SP passively and with her auto attacks, Arketto's attack range will extend by 1 tile up to 3 times when there is an operator with an offensive recovery skill on the board, including Arketto herself. Snegurochka happens to be a fantastic option for this, costing 0 hope to recruit and being easily thrown down early to help chip away at static targets like Statue Geists. Do so fast enough, and you might even get to keep Snegurochka's bonus attack speed for even more DP and Statue Geist damage. Now, I'm not going to oversell this. I did my testing for this on difficulty 10, which unfortunately leads me to admit that this does have some trouble clearing some of the floor 1 maps resistant to physical damage without leaking. But the starting objective shield is there to dampen the losses until you can find the promotions and items you'll need to have fun with this. So don't go throwing the baby out with the bathwater just yet. Pair this setup with items such as Fist Classics 123, Spinach Pack, or Captain Morgan's Wine to further enhance and make use of the frequent activations of most offensive recovery skills. Brocade Banner also becomes a potential hidden synergy with this kit as well, incentivizing skill spam on Vagary tiles to snowball even non-offensive recovery skills with smart placements. Now, I only have footage of this in IS-6, but you're still welcome to try this in other IS themes since Arketto's module applies her buffs in any of them. Just be aware that your mileage may vary when it comes to hope costs across different themes and difficulties, however. Another place worth mentioning Snegurochka's use is of course my favorite domain, Reclamation Algorithm. This game mode lets you build hunting net launchers, which are disposable devices that your operators can attack to make it fire at wild beasts to snare or capture them. Agent Vanguards with auto-triggering offensive recovery skills can essentially use these to farm DP safely and completely hands-free at a rate that exceeds the auto-trigger skills of most if not all Pioneer Vanguards. They even get pretty competitive with the rates of standard bearer vanguards, which have a very real potential in this mode to lose efficiency since the maps get large enough to the point where they might spend some time idle because you're too busy focusing elsewhere on the map. Up until now, we've had a bit of a staff shortage for this particular strategy. Inez, assuming that you have her, is usually better off using her skill 2 or skill 3 darting around the map instead of farming at a turret. Chilchuck is a delicious and dungeon collab character, so he's not readily available for most players. Cantabile and Surfer's passive skill 1s run out of duration eventually, rendering them liable to incur idle time if you're not on top of their micromanagement. And Siege S2 is an honorable mention here, but her S1 has superior efficiency without requiring something to hit. What we're left with is Puzzle, who is a welfare unit from What the Firelight casts. He's actually the best option to do this with, outclassing Inez thanks to his bonus SP talent always triggering on hit with a device that never loses HP. But since you cannot use him for both acts in one day, you're forced to find a different source of passive and reliable DP if you don't have an Inez or Chilchuck available for one reason or another. Now, thanks to Snegurochka being a lower rarity option, you can commit Inez to her more typical assassin work while Ksenia holds the fort on Puzzle's break time. Her DP generation rate is about half of Inez on paper, but if you keep her safe, her attack speed buff will make up for that difference considerably. But even if weather ruins her optimal rates by removing her talent buff, there are other ways to make this strategy shine in RA, specifically via attack speed buffs on permanent food, or temporary SP regeneration buffing food, such as Minoan Poetic Gel. Want the best of both worlds? Try Bolivarian smoked meat with some attack speed seasoning. She'll buff herself, gain attack speed, and her extra tile of range can buff one additional operator with a nice trickle of extra SP. Now I can hear the haters in the comments already. Okay, Mr. Reclamation Algorithm Man, how about you show us how she's good for the rest of the game? Sure, I can oblige. Look for anything involving static devices that require your operators to hit it repeatedly. This could be the boat engines in Icebreaker games, plan rocks in Sarkaz's Furnace-side Fables, or heat vents from the CV stages of Come Catastrophes or Wakes of Vultures. You'd only need something that doesn't fall apart too quickly to make use of an offensive recovery agent's interrogation techniques. But perhaps the best combo I have for Snegurochka is with Stainless's S3 turrets. I know, he's back on this channel again. Look, I just really like the guy, okay? Stainless will get his own video from me eventually, but I'd like to take a moment to appreciate his services in the context of Snegurochka's synergy. Once again, I won't oversell it. Stainless and his turrets make for a very expensive opening that you may very well want other vanguards to supply. If that defeats the purpose to you, that's fair, I understand. But if you're willing to hear me out, I think it's super cool that Snegurochka gets to effectively become a passive DP generator while banking up her auto attack damage into huge 1500 attack salvos that can hit air from an extended range and deal splash damage. If anything, she's replaced Puzzle in my lineup for this because of her cheaper cost and due to the fact that the turret firing removes the extra SP gain from Puzzle's talent that would otherwise make him the most efficient farmer in this case. It's a strategy that I always try to pull off whenever I can, and the resulting cacophony of noises is a satisfying payoff every single time. And there you have it. If I haven't convinced you to build your Snegurochka by now, I hope I've at least inspired you to bolster your reserves or look at other overlooked operators that you might have otherwise missed. Arknights continues to be a game filled with challenges that have a mind-bogglingly diverse spectrum of solutions for the vast majority of the game, and finding the ones that I like the most has been some of the best fun I've had in this game after getting progression and resources squared away. So with that, thank you for watching, and may your unpopular favorites stand the test of time.